So this is the book, which is Turning the Flywheel. Love Good to Great. I read it about 6 years ago. And in Good to Great, Jim Collins introduces the flywheel concept. And within that little section of the book, he also talks about the doom loop, which is kind of the opposite of the flywheel. When he then goes on in the Turning the Flywheel, he kind of creates it more into a framework that you can follow, and that's what we did. The idea is that success doesn't come from one sort of epic move that a business makes, one hire, one product, one strategy. It what it comes from is doing the right thing consistently, taking all of the elements of a business that work and having them completely aligned in the right order, and being incredibly disciplined about generating momentum through that discipline over time. From the outside, the success of a business might look like one epic, dramatic, and innovative move, but actually typically that just isn't the case at all. It's actually from identifying what works, identifying what doesn't, and then being utterly relentlessly consistent about sticking to what works.
How have you seen the metrics shift as you have consistently applied these ideas?
First of all, our fees, which I think is quite an interesting one, are about 4 times what the typical fees would be within our part of the industry in consulting. So they're nearly I measure this on a rolling 3-month average, and they're nearly £500 an hour now. And this year they're going to bust over £500 an hour. So I think that's quite an important metric. And I think this, we are unapologetically commercial, and I think you have to be, in order to achieve, what we're trying to achieve. So I think that's quite an interesting stat. Allied with that, we have a net promoter score. Are you all familiar with the net promoter score? Okay, so we have a net promoter score of 94. So that kind of having ridiculously high, and they are ridiculously high fees, allied with a net promoter score, so that value perception score, I guess, from our clients of 94, that puts us in the top 0.1% of advisories globally. I think that's quite cool. In addition, and by the way, we do that on a 4-day week, so a very, very disciplined 4-day week, non-compressed, and what we pay the team is equivalent to a 5-day week, top of the market as well. So with ridiculously high fees and a 4-day week, we have that client success, that client score of 94, which I think is quite cool. And interestingly, our employee net promoter score is 91, so that's top 0.1% as well. So that's really cool. But I really like the fact that it's lower, and we do put our people first, but then people first equals client first, and kind of profit comes later. But so those are, I think, are quite interesting stats. And over 80% of our business comes from organic referrals. 94.9% of our work is repeat business. And I say 94.9 because if I say 95, it sounds like we made it up, but actually it is exactly 94.9% of our work comes from repeat business, but less than 15% of our turnover comes from any one individual client. And our clients include Octopus Energy, Amazon, Diageo, Centrica. We just have massive clients. Will, you said you talked about, was it feelings is data or something like that? And actually, something that I can't express in numbers is what it's like to be. I mean, Will, you've been there, what it's like to be in that office when the team's all there. And that is, for me, that's the most important data. And it's something that I do miss because I'm over here. So I'm away from the business for a year and I'm not in that environment really, really kind of sensing, that kind of emotional resonance that goes on there. But from what I get being on calls with the team, it's everything that it was when I was there anyway.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you were before you found the kind of flywheel and then the how it took you through that transformation? Is that too structured? Does that work for
Well,
you?
I'm very excited that you asked me that question. And actually, just in because I have done a little bit of thinking before today about this because I didn't want to just turn up and have nothing to say, which would have been a bit embarrassing. But it made me so that in you'll all remember from Good to Great that Jim Collins talks about the doom loop and the flywheel. And so Road Night is 11 years old now, but actually for the first 5 years we were a generalist energy consultancy, and now we're deeply, deeply, deeply specialized, and we just keep on going, deeper and deeper into our niche. But back then we were very much a generalist, and we were in a doom loop. So this morning, I sort of on my remarkable here, I wrote down. I tried to kind of sketch out what our doom loop looked like, and so I mean I don't know whether I've necessarily got any stats, but I can tell you how it felt to be in the doom loop. But so we tried to sell many services to many people. Essentially, we amassed broad and shallow know-how across domains and niches. We attracted small clients with small projects that are non-critical, so non-critical projects. Whereas now, everything has to be mission critical, really, otherwise don't get involved, and whose challenges are low stakes. So we were looking after kind of projects that for the client it was like, meh, that was kind of where we were. Because of that, we had to price low and we pitched relentlessly for free. So putting together proposals that gave away lots of know-how for free to win work. And we further shrank our margins by massively over delivering to communicate, sort of value. And then we tried to sell more services to more people. And that was the kind of the doom loop where we essentially had ridiculously thin margins. And for a very long time, Luce and I were paid less than the lowest paid person in the business, and it was hand to mouth. It was absolutely awful. It was so stressful. I can, just the brain fog of kind of wading through that kind of toxic treacle was just awful. And we a couple of times came literally within hours of having to shut the door. So it was a hideous thing. That was my before Jim. And then we had a consultant come in to help us with some of the kind of our systems and processes. And he recommended Good to Great. And so I read it. And that was the start of the turning point. When I read Good to Great with all of those, I think there are 7 main themes that I'm sure you remember in there. I started implementing them, and the first one probably was the hedgehog concept. So working out what is the thing that we thought we could be the best in the world at. So we were doing something really, really, really well, which happened to be the grid side of things, and we got rid of everything else. And the start with who, being really, really careful about making sure that we only had the deepest experts, the best people. And I, the level 5 leadership, I can't remember what sits below level five, but that was where I was thinking this is where I need to be. And really those kind of 3 elements helped us turn around the business in order that then when I discovered the book Turning the Flywheel, I actually had something positive to implement. So we'd already gone from this doom loop to something that was a bit kind of mal coordinated. I guess if you imagine like a foal that's just flopped out of its mum and just stood up for the first time, I guess we're kind of a bit like that. But in going through the exercise of putting together our flywheel, having read through Turning the Flywheel, I guess that's where we kind of got that coordination and strength in order to get some speed going. So I've described the doom loop, and then I've described what happened when I read Good to Great and got us in a position where we actually had stuff that started working. And I don't think that I could have got the value that I got from this book in putting together our flywheel. We couldn't have done that if I hadn't actually started getting things moving, because I guess that the premise of Turning the Flywheel is you have to identify what is working. You identify what isn't working as well, and you can stop doing what isn't working. You identify what is working and really crystallize those elements that drive your engine, and then getting them in the right order, because it shouldn't simply be these are the elements, but actually if you get them into the right order, that's one will drive the next, and it took an awful lot of work to get to that. So
How long did that take, that process?
I'm going to say 3 months of, I mean, I'm going to say awful, actually. It was really, really hard. I mean, I'm feeling emotional just thinking about it. It was the soul searching that went into it was massive. I didn't do it with the team. I think some people would do this as some kind of, exercise with the team. And I'm not saying that would be the wrong way to go, but for me and for us, it was definitely the right thing to do, that I did it myself. It was a really, really difficult process. I started by, very quickly drawing up. I came up with 6, but I just knew, no matter what order I put them in, I knew it just wasn't right. It just felt wrong. It just didn't, I guess, resonate with me. And I tried, changing the words and putting them in different orders. So I put an artificial constraint on myself that I was going to start with 3 elements, and each of those 3 elements had to be a single word each. And the 3 I came up with were purpose, because every business now is and has to be purpose-led, culture, and impact. So they were the 3 that I ended up with, and I kept on struggling with this. I'd go out for a run every morning with Bob, my little kind of poodle type arrangement, and this was just going round and round in my head. I had the same with Start With Why, by the way. It was one of those things that just took months and months, and it kind of completely wrung me out. And I knew that it was just wrong with these 3 elements. But the problem wasn't the 3 elements; it was the order I'd put them in, because I'd put purpose first, and it suddenly dawned on me when you just kind of stop running in the middle of nowhere and go, oh my God, it's because it wasn't purpose, we're culture led. And then suddenly it all fell into place. Yeah, it is. It's culture, then purpose for us. And, it's going to be different for others, but it was culture, then purpose, and then impact. The single biggest win that I got from all of that work, and it'd be, all worthwhile, regardless of everything else, was actually working out, what was hiding in plain sight, because you're not kind of deciding what you're going to be. It's actually deciding what you are, and what we are here is a culture-led organization. So that was absolutely huge. So I put those 3 elements in the right order, in a circle, because that's the way wheels work, and then I generated the 6. So for each of those 3, I had 2. So there are 2 culture elements, and there are 2 purpose elements and 2 impact elements, and then fleshed out the rest of it.
I'm wondering whether it's a good time to share that on the screen and then talk us through the sort of sequential relationship of them.
these are the three elements: culture, purpose, and impact. But it actually starts here, sort of from 12 o'clock, of building a nurturing environment for every individual to grow and to thrive personally and professionally. This, I think is undeniably working, and I think that's that NPS and that data. If you are in the room there in the office, that's it is definitely a thing. And then there's this the first of the purpose elements is help each individual to find their own specific purpose within the wider team that makes their individual contribution meaningful to them. So the first, and for me, the far more important purpose element isn't about the organization's purpose, it's the individual's purpose. That motivates the individual and helps them to thrive, which then, feeds into the wider organizational purpose, which is focusing extraordinary expertise, topple the greatest barriers to connection. So that's great connection. Then we have, boldly delivering increasingly impactful services, and really important, I think we covered this earlier, which is actually about profitability. And so building resilience by generating cash reserves from premium fees. And so for us, it's not just about generating profit, it's laying down that profit into cash reserves. It gives the team confidence because we're very open about the finances, so they can see, great, there's 500 grand sitting there. I'm unlikely to be having to look for a job because the company's gone tits up. So that's really important to us. But also it means that this experimenting that we do, we can just keep on experimenting because we've got cash. If I'm constantly doing I guess making unconventional moves that might look a bit risky, but actually if you've got the cash you can do it anyway. So that's really important. Can you see these two images here?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the cognitive capital flywheel that I put together, and this is the kind of the equivalent doom loop, which is the cognitive corrosion spiral. So this is our people first equals client first, which seems to be working, and that's protecting cognitive space, setting boundaries that allow deep focus, health, and growth rather than constant reactivity, and then deep thinking leading to exceptional client outcomes and stronger trusting relationships, growth and value and vitality. And that feeds back into protecting the cognitive space, which is partly about clients, but partly about how we operate internally, is huge. I wouldn't have been able to do it if we hadn't just run an exercise where we had got rid of 80% of our clients. If I hadn't created that space within the organization and within my day and within my head, I would never have been able to do this. I would never have been able to come up with that why as well. That why was super important, and if I hadn't created the space I wouldn't have been able to do that.
I think one of the things I'm just impacted by again, Hugh, is the sort of the arc of the story. It was really hard. We put some structure and some process and some clarity, and we did hard thought work. And actually, it has resulted in a positive outcome. It's just very encouraging and inspiring. Thank you for doing the effort.
Thank you. And it wasn't a lot of fun. And now it's just, I've never had so much fun in my life. So